A boot slammed into the side of a cage. The wood splintered. Inside, a body shifted slow, weak, breathing in shallow pulls. Another boot came down. The crowd around it laughed. Someone spit through the bars. Someone else threw a stone. The animal didn't move. It just lay there, ribs showing, fur matted with blood and mud, one yellow eye half open. A man in a dirty apron stood beside the cage holding a rope. He was shouting prices at the gathered villagers. Nobody was buying. Then a small woman pushed through the back of the crowd. Her name was Myra. She had one coin left in her pocket. She walked straight to the cage, pulled the coin out and held it up. The crowd went silent. Then the laughing started. What Myra knew that nobody else knew would silence every mouth in that square. Just stay with me on this one. Myra had walked to the market that morning with one coin in her pocket and a list of 3 things she could not buy: salt, flour, a new wick for her lamp. She had stood at the salt seller's stall for a long time. She had looked at the flour sack. She had told herself she would choose only one thing, and the rest would wait. 3 winters ago, her husband had died of fever. The roof of their cottage had begun to lean the year after. Their small flock of sheep had been sold off, one by one, to keep the chimney smoking. By the time autumn came around, Myra had sold everything that did not hold a memory. The candlestick her mother had given her. The iron pot with the cracked handle. The wool blanket her daughter had loved. Her daughter was gone now too, married off 3 valleys away, and Myra had not seen her in 2 years. The coin in her pocket was the very last one. She had earned it that morning by mending a pair of trousers for the miller's boy. The miller had told her the work was poor and tried to short her, but she had stood her ground. She had walked away with 1 round silver, and she had counted it in her hand all the way to the square. She had not been planning to stop at the cage. She had been planning to walk straight past the auction pen and onto the road home and decide between salt and flour on the way. But then she heard the laughing. A small crowd had gathered around a man in a stained apron. He was a traveling trader. Myra had seen him before. He came every harvest, selling whatever he could catch in the woods. A bear cub one year. A pair of foxes another. This year he had a wolf. The cage was small. Too small. The wolf inside was lying on its side, ribs pushing out against the skin so hard you could count them. There was blood at its mouth. There was blood at the base of its tail. One ear had been split. The yellow eye was half open and watching nothing. Last chance, the trader was shouting. 5 silver and the rope is yours. Pull him out, club him, skin him, do what you like. 5 silver. Nobody moved. 3 then. 3 silver. Look at this fur. Look at this fur. The fur was matted and patchy. Nobody was looking at it. A boy threw a pebble at the cage. The wolf did not flinch. The boy's father laughed and ruffled the boy's hair. Myra moved closer. She did not know why at first. She told herself later that her feet had moved before her thoughts had. She walked to the side of the cage, and she leaned down and she looked. That was when she saw it. On the wolf's shoulder, under the dirt and the blood and the matted hair, was a mark. Not a wound. Not a brand from a farmer's iron. A specific mark. 2 lines crossing each other and a small circle above them. It had been burned into the skin a long time ago, and the hair had grown in pale around it. Myra's breath stopped. She had seen that mark before. She had seen it many times before. She had grown up around that mark. Her father had been a kennel keeper for a great house when she was a girl, and that mark had been on every animal in the yard. Every hound. Every hunting dog. Every wolf. The Lord's mark. She straightened up. She looked at the trader. She looked at the wolf. She looked at the crowd. Then she put her hand into her pocket, and she pulled out the silver coin, and she held it up. 1 silver, she said. I will give you 1 silver. The trader stopped shouting. He looked at her. Then he started to laugh. The crowd started to laugh with him. 1 silver, the trader said. For a wolf worth 5. For a wolf that will be dead before sunset, Myra said. Take the coin or do not. He looked at the cage. He looked at the wolf. He looked at the silver in Myra's hand. The wolf had not moved in nearly an hour. The afternoon was getting late. He spit on the ground. Done, he said. Drag it out yourself, woman. I am not touching it. He took the coin. The crowd kept laughing as Myra opened the cage. The wolf weighed almost nothing. That was the first thing Myra noticed. She had expected a great pulling weight, a beast that would fight her. Instead, when she got her arms under it and lifted, she felt bones and breath and very little else. A grown wolf should weigh as much as a man. This one weighed less than a sack of grain. She wrapped him in the shawl from her shoulders. She did it because she did not want the village children to see his ribs. She tied the shawl around his middle like a sling. She balanced his weight against her hip. Then she started to walk. The crowd parted for her. Some of them were still laughing. Some had gone quiet. The miller's wife was watching with her mouth half open. The blacksmith's 2 sons were calling out behind her. Myra, Myra, will you cook him? Will you make a stew? Save us a bowl. The blacksmith himself was leaning on his anvil and smiling. The trader had already turned away. He was counting her coin. Myra did not look at any of them. The road home was long. It went through the square and past the church and up the hill and out beyond the last cottage and into the trees. By the time she reached her own gate, she was sweating through her dress, and the wolf had not opened his eye. She kicked her door open with her foot. Inside the cottage it was cold. The fire had been out since the morning. She laid the wolf down on the floor in front of the hearth, and she stood over him for a moment, breathing hard. Then she went to work. She built up the fire. She put a pot of water over it. She tore an old sheet into strips. She found the small jar of honey she had been saving for the winter, the last thing of any real worth in the house, and she set it beside the fire. Then she knelt next to the wolf. She talked to him while she worked. She did not know if he could hear. She told him she was going to clean him. She told him it might hurt. She told him to hold on. She started with the ear. The split was old and infected. She washed it with the warm water, and she covered it with honey, and she wrapped a strip of cloth around his head. He did not flinch. He did not move at all. She washed his shoulder next. She washed it slowly, with her smallest cloth, working the dried blood out of the fur in small, careful circles. And as she worked, the mark came clear. It was just as she remembered. 2 lines crossed. A small circle above them. The brand of a great house. The brand her father had pressed into the skin of every animal in his care, with a hot iron and a steady hand and a quiet word. She remembered the smell of it. She remembered the sound. She remembered her father telling her, when she was very small, that the mark was a promise. A promise that the animal belonged to someone, and that someone would always come for it. Always. She sat back on her heels. She thought about the year she had left that great house. She had been 13. Her father had taken a fever, the same fever that would later take her husband, and he had died in the kennel master's room above the dog yard. The Lord had sent her down to a cousin in the lowlands. She had married a shepherd. She had buried her husband. She had not thought about that yard or those animals in 20 years. But she remembered them now. She remembered especially one wolf cub. A litter had come in the spring before her father died. 5 pups, gray and black, and one of them with a small white mark on the chest like a finger pressed into snow. Her father had let her name him. She had called him Vasha because it had been her grandfather's name. She had fed him from her hand. She had sung to him. She lifted the wet cloth. She wiped the matted fur away from the wolf's chest. And there it was. A small mark, like a finger pressed into snow. Myra's hand went still. She sat there for a long time without moving. The fire cracked behind her. The water in the pot bubbled and went quiet. The wolf Vasha did not move. She put her face close to his. She could feel his breath, thin and warm, on her cheek. She closed her eyes. She began to hum. It was a song her father used to sing in the kennels. He sang it when the pups were sick. He sang it when the older dogs were dying. He sang it the night before he himself was buried. It had no words that Myra could remember. Just a low, slow tune, the kind of thing a man hums when he is working with his hands and thinking of nothing in particular. She hummed it now. She was on the 3rd verse when the wolf's tail moved. It was not much. It was the smallest twitch, the slightest shift along the floor. But it was movement. It was the first movement Myra had seen out of him since the cage. She opened her eyes. The wolf was looking at her. His one good eye, the yellow one, was open and clear and focused on her face. He knew her. Myra put her hand on his shoulder on the brand, and she kept humming. The wolf let out a long, slow breath. His head settled against the floor. His good eye stayed on her. She sat with him until the candle burned low. Outside, the village had gone quiet. The market had closed. The trader had taken his cart and his coin and gone. The road past her cottage was empty. The trees at the back of her yard were still. Myra got up at last. She fetched a bowl. She filled it with the warm water, and she set it next to the wolf's mouth. He turned his head a little. He drank. Slowly. Carefully. But he drank. She sat back down beside him. For the first time since her husband had died, she was not alone in the cottage. The candle guttered. The fire settled. The wolf breathed in and out, slow and steady. Myra's eyes began to close. She thought just before she fell asleep that the worst of the day was behind her. She was wrong. The first knock came just past midnight. Myra opened her eyes. The fire had burned down to coals. The wolf was still breathing beside her. The cottage was dark and quiet except for the knocking, which came again, 3 hard blows that made the door shake on its hinges. A voice followed. "Open up, woman. Open up, or I will open it for you." It was the trader. Myra got to her feet slowly. Her knees were stiff from sitting on the floor. She looked at the wolf. She looked at the door. She looked at the iron poker by the hearth. She picked it up. "What do you want?" she called through the door. "What do I want?" the trader laughed. "I want what is mine. I want the animal. The deal is off. Open the door." "The deal is done," Myra said. "You took my coin. I took your coin because I thought you were a fool. I thought the wolf would be dead in an hour, and you would be left with nothing. But word has gone around the village tonight, woman. Word has gone around. Some say that Wolf has a mark on him. Some say that mark belongs to a great house. I want to look at him in proper light. Now open the door." Myra's hand tightened on the poker. "No," she said. There was a silence on the other side. Then the trader laughed again. It was a different kind of laugh this time. A colder one. "I have men with me," he said. 3 of them. We will count to 10. Then we will come in." He started to count. Myra looked at the wolf. The wolf was watching her. His good eye had not closed since she lit the fire. His ear tilted toward the door. He understood what was happening. She was sure of it. She moved fast. She pulled the heavy table away from the wall, and she dragged it in front of the door. She set the iron poker on top of it. She pulled the bench beside the table. She turned and she crossed the room and she knelt by the wolf, and she put her hand on his head. "Be still," she said softly. "Be still, Vasha. Be still." Then she stood up and she turned to face the door. The counting reached 10. The door shook. Then it shook again. The wood of the frame cracked. The hinges groaned. "Stop," Myra said. The pounding stopped. "Stop and listen to me," she said. "I will tell you something now, traitor. Something you need to hear before you break that door." A pause. Then his voice came back. "Speak quickly." "That wolf has a mark on his shoulder," Myra said. "You know that. The village knows that now. But you do not know the mark. You do not know whose it is." "I do." "Then tell me." "It is the mark of the great house of the Eastern Valley. The Lord whose name no one in this village will say out loud. The Lord whose riders pass through twice a year and take what they want. That is his mark. That is his wolf. And he has been searching for that wolf for 2 summers." The silence on the other side of the door went very long. If you are still with me on this story, and I hope you are, because what comes next is what the whole night has been moving toward, take a moment right now and hit that subscribe button. There is more to this than the wolf. There is more to it than the coin. The truth that breaks open in the next part of the night is the kind of truth that changes a village. Stay with me. Subscribe. And let us go to the door together. The traitor laughed. But it was a smaller laugh now. A nervous one. "You lie," he said. "You are a poor woman in a poor cottage. You know nothing about lords." "My father was the kennel master of that house," Myra said. "I grew up in that yard. I named that wolf when he was a pup. His name is Vasha. He has a white mark on his chest like a finger pressed into snow. Look at him in the morning, traitor. Look at him in the light. You will see what I see. And then you will run." There was no laugh this time. There was the sound of a knife being drawn. "I do not believe you," the traitor said. "But I do not need to believe you. I only need the wolf. Step aside, woman. Open the door. Or I will come through it, and I will take the wolf and you with him." The door shook again. Then again. Then the wood splintered down the middle. Myra stepped back. The wolf raised his head from the floor. He growled. It was a small growl. A weak one. But it was the first sound he had made. Outside the cottage, far away, a horn blew. It was a hunting horn. Long and low. The kind of horn that carries through forest and over hill and means that riders are coming. The traitor heard it. He stopped pounding on the door. He listened. The horn blew again. Closer. The sound of hooves came after it. Many hooves. A whole company. Myra lowered the poker. She looked at the wolf. The wolf was looking at the door. "They are here," Myra whispered. "They are here, Vasha. They have come for you." The traitor's voice came one more time through the broken door. It had no laugh in it now. "Who has come?" he said. But he already knew. The hooves came up the hill in a steady wave. Myra heard them stop in front of her cottage. She heard the creak of saddles. She heard the snort of horses. She heard a man's voice, calm, used to being obeyed, give an order in 2 words. "Stay mounted." A second voice answered. Yes, my lord. The trader on the other side of the broken door went very still. There was a soft footfall on Myra's stone path. Then a knock. It was not a hard knock. It was a single, polite tap, the kind a guest gives. Myra walked across the cottage. She moved the table. She pulled what was left of the broken door open. The trader and his 3 men were standing in her yard with their hands away from their belts. They were not looking at Myra. They were looking past her to the road. A line of riders stretched along the road in the moonlight. 12 of them. Maybe 15. Each one in a dark cloak with a silver clasp at the throat. The clasp was the same shape on every man. 2 lines crossed, a small circle above. At the head of the riders, a man had dismounted. He was older than Myra had expected. His beard was white. His back was straight. He was holding the reins of a tall gray horse, and he was looking at the cottage. He saw Myra. He bowed his head a little. "Forgive the late hour," he said. "I am told there is a wolf here. A wolf with a mark." His voice was the same voice she had heard giving the order. "Come." Used to being obeyed. Myra stepped aside. He came in past her without saying another word. He walked across her cottage. He knelt next to the wolf. He took his glove off. He put his bare hand on the wolf's shoulder on the brand, and he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. "It is him," he said. "It is Vasha." After 2 years, the trader in the yard took a step backward. One of his men took a step backward with him. The Lord did not look up. He stayed kneeling next to the wolf, one hand on the brand, the other now resting very lightly on the wolf's head. The wolf let out a long, slow breath. "Who saved him?" the Lord asked. He was speaking to the room. He was not looking at anyone. Myra took a moment to find her voice. "I bought him," she said, "from the trader in the square. This afternoon." The Lord lifted his head. He looked at her properly for the first time. His eyes were very dark. "With what?" he said. "With my last coin." There was a silence in the cottage. The fire ticked. The wolf breathed. The Lord stood up. "Your last coin," he said. "Yes, my lord." "And you knew." "I knew the mark, my lord. My father wore the chain of the kennel master at your house when I was a girl. I named this pup. I named him Vasha. He had a white mark on his chest, like a finger pressed into snow. I would have known him anywhere." The old man's hand went to his beard. He held it there for a moment. Then he turned to the door. "Bring the trader inside," he said. 2 of his riders dismounted at once. They had the trader by the arms before the trader could decide whether to run. They walked him into the cottage, and they set him down on his knees in front of the Lord. The trader's 3 men were taken too and held in the yard. The Lord looked down at the trader. "You took this woman's last coin," he said. The trader opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "You took her last coin in front of a crowd of people who laughed at her. That crowd is in this village still. They went to bed laughing tonight. Tomorrow they will wake to different mourning." The trader tried to speak. The Lord lifted one finger and he stopped. "You are going to break this door tonight. You are going to take the wolf. You are going to take the woman. You said as much in the yard, where my men have been listening for the last quarter hour." The trader's face went the color of old milk. "I will not kill you in this cottage," the Lord said. "I will not bring blood into the home of the woman who saved Vasha. You will be taken to the eastern road. You will stand before the village in the morning, in the same square where you took the coin. The whole village will hear what you did. The whole village will hear what she did. And then you will be taken back across the valley, and you will be tried for what is found on your cart." He looked over the trader's shoulder at one of his men. "Go to his cart," the Lord said. "I want to know what else he has been carrying." The rider went. The Lord turned back to Myra. The hardness in his face was gone. What replaced it was something quieter, something tired and a little sad. "You knew my house once," he said. "I did, my lord. Your father was a good man, the best kennel master my house has ever had. I thought of him often after the fever took him. I have thought of him tonight." Myra's eyes were burning. She did not let them fall. "Thank you, my lord." He looked down at Vasha. "He went missing on a hunt 2 summers ago. We thought he was dead. I had a stone laid for him in the kennel yard. His mother is still alive. She is old now. She still goes to the gate at sunset. She has been waiting for him." The wolf's tail moved against the floor. Just a little. The Lord knelt again. He put his hand once more on the brand. His shoulders shook one time, very slightly. Then they were still. Outside the cottage, the village was no longer asleep. People had come to the gate. They had lit lanterns. They were standing in the road in their night clothes, watching silent. The miller's wife was there. The blacksmith was there. The boy who had thrown the pebble was there. None of them were laughing now. Morning came slow. The Lord did not leave Myra's cottage that night. He sent his riders to the village and to the eastern road and to the trader's cart. He himself sat by Myra's fire until the sky began to change behind the trees. He spoke very little. He kept one hand on the wolf's head while he sat. The wolf slept the deep sleep of an animal that has finally, after a long time, decided it is safe. When the first gray light came in through the cottage window, the Lord stood up. "I would like to ask something of you," he said. Myra waited. "Come back with us. Come back to the Eastern Valley. I have no kennel master since your father. I have only men who think they know what he knew. You grew up in that yard. You named this animal. You saved him. There is a place for you in my house. A real place. A warm room. Bread on the table. Work that is not breaking your back in a poor field. Bring the wolf. Bring whatever else you wish to bring. You will be welcome." Myra looked at the room around her. The hearth. The table. The shawl that was still tied in the shape of a sling, lying on the floor where she had set the wolf down. She thought about it for a long time. "My lord," she said at last, "I am grateful. I am more grateful than I have words for. But I will stay here." The Lord did not seem surprised. "May I ask why?" "My husband is buried at the back of this cottage," she said. "My father is buried at your house, but my husband is here. And my hands have learned this hearth. And the wolf is mine now, my lord. I will keep him here. He has been a long time in cages and on roads. He has earned a quiet place. I will give him one." The Lord nodded. "Then let me give you something else," he said. "I will not ask twice. But what I give you, you will not refuse. You will take it because it is owed." He spoke a name. One of his men came in. The man laid a small leather bag on Myra's table. "There is enough in there to keep the cottage standing for the rest of your life," the Lord said. "There is enough to mend the roof. There is enough to bring your daughter back from 3 valleys away if she wishes to come. There is enough for salt and flour and the wick of every lamp you will ever burn. It is not a gift. It is a debt that this house owes you. You will take it." Myra put her hand on the bag. She did not open it. She did not lift it. She just rested her hand on the leather. "I will take it," she said. In the village square that morning, the trader was made to stand on the same stone where he had stood the day before. The whole village was there. Nobody laughed this time. The Lord himself spoke. He told them what had been done. He told them what Myra had seen that none of them had seen. He told them the name of the wolf, and the name of Myra's father, and the name of the great house. When he was finished, the blacksmith took his hat off. The miller's wife began to cry. The boy who had thrown the pebble walked out of the crowd alone, and he came up the hill to Myra's cottage, and he stood at the gate with his hand on the wood. Myra saw him from the window. She came out into the yard. The boy did not say anything for a while. Then he said, "I am sorry." Myra knelt down. She was an old woman now, and her knees did not like it, but she knelt. "I forgive you," she said. "Go home." He went. The riders left at midday. The Lord went last. He stood at Myra's gate, and he looked at her cottage and at the trees behind it and at the chimney, which was smoking in a thin, steady line. "He will live," the Lord said. He was speaking of the wolf. "I have seen worse than he was last night. He will live, and he will be old, and he will be with you." "I know," Myra said. The Lord swung up onto his horse. He raised his hand. The riders turned. The horses went down the hill in a long, slow line, and the dust they raised hung in the air a long time after they were gone. Myra went back inside. The wolf lifted his head. She knelt beside him on the floor, the same floor where she had laid him down the afternoon before. She put her hand on his shoulder, on the brand. He pushed his head against her palm. The fire was warm. The pot on the hearth was steaming. The cottage smelled of wood smoke and honey and something else, something Myra had not smelled in her own house for 3 winters, the smell of another living thing breathing in the same room with her. She thought of the square the day before. She thought of the coin in her pocket. She thought of the laughter. She thought of all the things she could have spent that coin on. The salt. The flour. The wick. She put her face down against the wolf's neck. The fur was clean now. She had washed it twice. It smelled of the river and the soap she had made in the spring. "Good boy," she whispered. "Good boy, Vasha. We are home." Outside, the road was empty. The leaves were beginning to turn. Far away in the valley, a horn blew once in farewell. Myra closed her eyes. She was not laughing. Nobody was laughing. But for the first time in a long time, she was smiling.